So my dude's Valkyrja, and today I've seen lots of claims of how this game is going to die to power creep, or how this game needs power creep to survive, etc. And I want to talk about that today. Basically, the future of starrail, the way I see it going, my expectations for it, how well this video will age, I don't know. I have no idea how well this video is going to age, but I do want to make this video because I think it's important to talk about these things I've been seeing going around in the community, and I want to talk about it all. So I have heard that for turn-based games to be successful, they need power creep, and power creep will be one of the reasons that kills this game. And I feel that's not necessarily true. And a good example of them not needing the power creep units to make them relevant, fun, and interesting is Chingso, right here. Gamba girl. I probably slaughtered her name. If I did, I'm sorry. I'm just not good at pronouncing names. You'll have to forgive me. But Gamba girl, the way she works is so sick. I'm actually going to make a video dedicated just to her. She basically pulls up her own little board. She literally has a UI where you pull a board up for her skill, and then you can spend as many skill points as you want to Gamba to try to draw 4 tiles. And if you get 4 tiles, right, you can go ahead and you get her cherry on top enhanced basic attack. And she has talents that base around that. She gets all sorts of buff off of getting the same tiles. And even then, if you get her eidolons, you get her dupes, you get the E4, it adds even more Gambit to her. So if you're rolling tiles, you have a chance of getting this buff that also doubles the damage, essentially, of that enhanced attack. There's so much interesting stuff to this character. And for people who like playing gacha games, gambling degens, she's amazing. She really is. And this is kind of how I expect them to go through. Rather than power creep, I expect them to release interesting characters. It's just something that I think is going to be really, really cool as time goes on. And it's going to be interesting because I think starrail is going to go in the same vein as Genshin, and the same vein as Honkai Impact, and the fact that there's not going to be a ton of power creep. I've talked to multiple, I don't play Honkai Impact myself, so I'm taking the word of, I have friends that have played it for multiple years. They said power creep, it is a thing, but it's not really anything egregious. It's to the point where older units can still clear 90% of the content very easily, and they're still core in a lot of teams. But newer units are absolutely better, but it's not egregious to the point where if you have a unit that's 2 years old, you're not going to be able to beat anything. In Genshin, we all know power creep is virtually non-existent entirely. It's just not really there. I mean, you have Raiden, who's really, really, really strong, who came out a year after the game came out, but that's to the extent. Nahida is also a good example. Characters that are really strong, but these are archons, they're outliers. For the most part, characters generally stay pretty contained within the power, and there's not really any power creep. Now, for turn-based, one thing I will give the detractors of starrail, for turn-based, I will agree that for it to stay interesting, for it to stay fun in a turn-based game, you're going to have difficult content. You're going to have to, because I don't know about you, and I think whaling in this game is one of the worst things you can do. Personally speaking, I think whaling is one of the absolute worst things you can do. Because imagine going to hardest content in the game, flipping on auto like this, and just watching your characters do their thing, rather than you actually having to think, you actually having to plan out skill point economy, having to plan out which weakness breaks you use, having to play an actual strategic game. Rather than doing that, you just flip it on auto and you just win because you spent your entire bank account to get a really, really strong team. That's definitely something people can do, but it's something that I think is kind of silly to do, because I don't think this game needs you to whale out, and 2, while I do think the game needs difficult content to keep players interested, I said the same thing about Genshin. I was dead wrong. So I could be very wrong. The game could not have difficult content towards the end game. Once we all reach, full 10 characters, level 80, fully maxed out, geared to the gills. Once we all reach that point, I don't think we're going to be struggling all that much. I think it's going to be more of Genshin, where it's just you log in, you do your dailies, you log out, you wait for new updates, you do the story, you ride along for the story, and maybe they'll add new in-game modes later on. But for now, I think they're going to stick to Simulated Universe, which once you can clear Simulated Universe World 5, at max difficulty very easily. Or is it World 6? It's World 6. Once you can clear World 6 at max difficulty very easily, once you can beat the Abyss Floor 15, you're basically done at that point. There's not really going to be anything more for you to do, which is why, once again, I said whaling's probably the dumbest thing you can do in this game. Whenever you're whaling for weapons, whaling for unit constellations, etc., going for the strongest possible units you can, I think it's kind of not going to be very good in the long run, simply because you're going to run out of things to do and going to run out of the challenge, and the challenge is what keeps a lot of turn-based alive, in my opinion. So that's the main concern about power creep. But based on Hoyo's past, based on the way Hoyo does things and their past with Honkai Impact, their past with Genshin Impact, I just don't see power creep being a big thing, especially not big enough to kill it. Will there be power creep? I fully believe there will. I think there will be a similar level to Honkai Impact. I don't think it's going to be as non-existent as it is in Genshin. But I think this will be similar to Honkai, to where it's not egregious. It does exist, but it's not egregious to the point where these day one units we have are still going to be relevant a year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now. They'll be relevant, but they won't be the best, which I think is perfectly fine. I think that's a acceptable level of power creep, to where you're not running the absolute, you don't have to run the absolute optimal teams to beat everything. But if you want to get really strong units later on, and you want to upgrade your team, replace components of it, you absolutely can. However, you don't have to. You can just use the strong units you already have and clear everything. I believe that's the direction the game's going to go. Now, a year from now, 2 years from now, whatever, I think the game is going to be very successful, because if you guys don't know, it did, at first day it surpassed Genshin, but it didn't surpass Genshin within the first week, if that makes sense. The first day this game came out, it did around 6 million. Genshin did 4.6 million on launch. But within the first week, this game has done around 40 million from the reports I'm seeing. And Genshin did around 60 million within the first week. So, I don't think that this is going to be on as popular as Genshin. It could surpass it. It could be as popular. It could be less. I don't know. I can't see the future. I'm just judging based off what I've seen on reports. I don't think it's going to be as popular as Genshin. However, I do believe that it's going to remain a very, very, very popular game. Very prominent. I see it being more popular than Honkai Impact. And I see it being a very, very popular game. One of the most popular gacha games out there, alongside Genshin. I don't think it's going to surpass Genshin, but I think it's going to be really high up there with Genshin. And I'm really excited to see the future of the game. But TLDR, TLDW, if you're just skipping to the end of the video, is power creep going to kill Honkai starrail? No, absolutely not. Power creep is not going to kill Honkai at all. It's not going to touch it. Don't worry about the power creep. Don't worry about people saying that. They're goofy. As time goes on, as we get more units, we'll have access to more team compositions. There'll be more interesting strategies to do. Like when Kafka comes out, right now DOT isn't all that valuable outside of Simulated Universe. Inside Simulated Universe, you can stack nihilistic buffs and go crazy with DOT. But outside Simulated Universe, there's not a whole lot of reason to actually run DOT yet. But when Kafka comes out, it's going to open up a slew of possibilities with DOT popping teams, because she's going to be able to stack DOT damage and just pop it immediately for some crazy, crazy damage. And I'm really excited to theory craft teams like that, think of teams like that, see what they can do whenever they actually come out, according to my expectations. I'm really excited for stuff like that. And I think there's going to be a lot more interesting units going forward, because turn-based, the creativity that they have within turn-based is very limited, so I think they're going to have to get pretty creative with it. And I think we're going to get more units like Gamba Girl that are just completely unique compared to any other gacha game I've ever played. And it's going to be pretty sick. I'm really excited for the future of this. Other than that, thank you guys all for watching. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.